Would you like to talk about Giallo? I would. Let's talk about 1975's Strip Nude for Your Killer.
A shadow in the night. Footsteps on the stairs. The sound of death.
Carl, I'm afraid. What am I supposed to do?
Magda, get that film. It's a special infrared film. Get it and develop it. Hurry.
Strikes out of the void. No one knows why. A mystery within a mystery.
Carlo, the murderer could be anyone.
Yeah. Why not? Why not me, for instance?
Almost as if for a sacred rite.
Oh, he killed Doris. Then Doris must have been killed by the same madman.
Blood to slake the thirst of a human beast. There's very little time to love. It must be done hurriedly. Desperately. Because for him, for her, for anyone, an atrocious death may be approaching. Slowly, fearfully, the minutes pass by, and one feels the breath of death on the back of one's neck.
He gave us a slip.
An anguished shiver chills the blood. It's the moment of terror.
When a movie starts with a fashion model dying during a back alley abortion and it being covered up as a drowning all before the credits, you know you're in for something a little scummy.
Mother, this cloth smells of death.
When you realize this was written and directed by Andre Bianchi, who brought us Burial Ground, you'll either run screaming or sit down and pay attention and then strip nude for your killer. The doctor performed this operation is killed by a maniac in a motorcycle suit, but nobody at the Albatross modeling agency cares. All Carlo, the head photographer, cares about is using his modeling connections to pick up women. That's how he meets Lucia, who is Femi Bunusi from Hatchet for the Honeymoon, whom he takes from the steam room to the modeling agency. Meanwhile, Magda, Edwidge Fenech, looking better than she ever has ever, which is not possible, is jealous, so she prizes Carlo with some black lace, and they begin an affair. We then see a photo of the main agency members, like Mario, Magda, Carlos, Stefano, Doris, Maurizio and his wife, and the owner of the studio, Gazella. There's one other person in the photo, Evelyn, the woman that we saw die in the beginning. Mario heads home, the killer shows up, and when their helmet is removed, Mario knows the killer. But it's too late, he's dead now. The killer takes the photos so they have a checklist of who to kill next. Up next is Maurizio cheating on his wife with a prostitute. He takes her on a crazy ride through the streets, then back to his place where he begs and threatens her life. She suddenly wants to have sex with him because, that's how things worked in the 70s. Before he lasts all of a minute and starts to embrace his blow-up doll. And then he's killed right afterwards. So good riddance. Carlo later witnesses Gasello being murdered, and he even photographs the attack, but he's hurt in a hit-and-run accident. While recovering, Magda develops the film, but the killer ruins the negatives. After killing Doris and Stefano, the killer tries to kill Carlo and Magda, but then the killer's knocked downstairs. So who is it? I'm not going to tell you on the podcast. You got to go watch it. The movie ends with Carlo playing around by mock choking Magda, so it's not them, for initiating tradesman entrance sex with her. And if you know what that means, you're a pervert, and you're a British pervert. But third input sex, she tells him not to in the scene. Meant as comedy, but lost in translation, and the fact that 40-plus-year-old Giallo could never anticipate the Me Too movement or the fact that women want to be treated with respect. The title of the film says it all. It is a lot of nudity, and very lurid, too. I do not know if Bianchi intended this as a comedy, but it feels like one. It's an incredible, though, that a movie with this much nudity and mayhem moves at such a glacial pace. I feel like the film's first hour was the entire running time contained wall-to-wall misogyny. I know, and that's the majority of Giallo, but it feels so overwhelming and alien when you watch it with today's eyes. But, let me ask you, should I be shocked that a movie called Strip Nude for Your Killer is sexist? And yet, why do I love it so much? Is it because Edwige Fenech is in it? Will I do anything she tells me to do? Yes. Speaking of scummy Giallo, let's talk about a muck with an exclamation point. If your movie has an exclamation point, it is super scuzzy. Muck's a great title, but this is a movie filled with great titles. There's Alla Riseria da Pliacera, In Pursuit of Pleasure, Maniac Mansion, Leather and Whips, and Hotbed of Sex. Working titles were Repetition of a Crime and Footsteps of the Killer, no matter what name you give it. A dark little film. It stars Greta Barbara Boucher, so I have the two top Giallo queens in this episode. Greta is an American abroad, working as a secretary to Richard Stewart, played by Farley Granger, who's also in So Sweet, So Dead, and What Have They Done to Your Daughters? Along with his wife, Eleonora, played by Rosabla Neri from Lady Frankenstein. The writer lives in comfort on his own island. Look, if you got Barbara Boucher and Rosabla Neri in your life, you can't be sad. You can't. It's impossible. Anyway, their past secretary, Sally, disappeared without a trace. However, Richard and Eleanor don't know Greta's reason for joining them. The missing girl, Sally, was her lover. A fact we find out via flashback lovemaking scene that is artful, if stilted, awkward, in the way that men assume women sleep together, staring at one another and attempting to kiss, then going to sleep. Instead, this feels like the fever-addled wet dream of a maniac, which pretty much isn't that what all Giallo is? The more Greta gets close, the more sex, drugs, and violence is unearthed. The Stewarts often hold sex parties in their palatial home. Eleanor also has ESP, and she's seen Greta's death, screaming about it while in a fit of prophecy. Indeed, death is stalking our heroine the next day. A hunting trip turns into a brush with quicksand. The most evil of all movie doom, Richard reveals that his wife fascinates him because of how duplicitous she is. But he's falling in love with Greta because of how honest she is. He then reveals the accident that claims Sally's life in a flashback. Eleanor watches Rocco through her hunting scope before inviting him to rendezvous with her and Sally. They both dance for him in a series of druggy jump cuts, perhaps the film's most assured scene. After making love to Eleanor, the fisherman kisses Sally tenderly before losing control, which is shown by how the film speeds up. Like a Keystone Cops film, he ends up choking Sally to death while Eleanor watches powerless to stop him. Richard and Greta end up making sweet love that night during a storm. Eleanor watches through the doorway before looking right at the camera, sad but not surprised. The very next evening, after Richard leaves town, Eleanor sets up the same three-way with Rocco, who she calls the perfect male, but he seems mentally deficient. That's probably a comment on men, right? Greta tries to leave, only to find the dead body of the butler in the hallway. Richards is up, telling her this has all been a game. They found Sally's body, and now they need to get rid of her sister. He tells her it's all over and she must die, describing how Rocco will murder her. However, Rocco remembers an act of kindness that Greta had performed for him. Eleanor attacks him, slapping him before he tosses her into a wall, killing her and stabbing Richard. Greta leaves, learning that Rocco is finally going to get the help he needs, yet the film ends on a weird note, as the policeman tells Greta that the woman they found isn't even Sally. Who was her lover, not her sister, but who knows? It's an Italian movie, so it could have been both. Director Silvio Armadio crafts a film that takes some time to get going and it flashes a mood, but Look, it's not the best Giallo. That said, it's an attractive cast to work with, an interesting story, and there's a well-shot sequence of a boatman taking a dead body down a river that aspires to art. How about a few facts? Edwidge Fenech was supposed to be the lead in this, but dropped out discovering she was pregnant. Sylvia Amadio said that he was going to film the lesbian scene, which is probably the reason most folks would want to watch this, between Neri and Barbara Boucher, and was going to have a closed set. Boucher said there's no need for a closed set, but Neri was like, yes, we need a closed set, please. Let's finish things up with another Farley Granger film, So Sweet, So Dead. In case you thought it wasn't an amazing title, it also has the alternate title, Revelations of a Sex Maniac to the leader of the mobile team. The slasher is a sex maniac, and one more that we'll get into before we're done. Director Roberto Bianchi Montero bounced around from genre to genre, like the spaghetti western Seven Pistols for a Gringo and The Last Tomahawk, De Peblum, like Thor's Son of Attila, and even kind of sort of horror, The Island Monster with Boris Karloff, which is not a monster movie. This movie has a great pedigree despite all the sleaze it has. The star Farley Granger was in 2 Hitchcock films, Rope and Strangers on a Train. Someone is killing the rich and adulterous wives of Rome. First, he or she takes pictures of them as they do some crab fishing in the Dead Sea, so to speak. You know, some churning the butter, some gut punching. And then he kills them. The images of those priests are laid next to their bodies, the faces of the men scratched out. Siskel and Ebert thought the slashers were anti-women. They would have lost their minds in Italy. Silvia Cosina from Leasing the Devil's in this, as is Annabelle Incontera from The Case of the Bloody Iris, Chris Avram from Enter the Devil, the Italian version, Femi Buccini from Hatchet from the Honeymoon, Krista Neal from The Bloodsucker Leads the Dance, another Italian horror film re-edited to include adult scenes, spoiler warning, and Giallo Queen Nieves Navarro, whose resume includes favorites like Death Walks on High Heels, All the Colors of the Dark, and Death Walks at Midnight. The rich society wives don't stop sleeping around, neither do their husbands, but the killer wants nothing to do with punishing them. The husbands, that is, but the wives, yeah. And the wives, even though they're sleeping around, they still discuss the crimes and sleeping around while getting their nails done naked, such as the world of So Sweet, So Dead. It's also a place filled with opulent homes, awesome fashions, squeaky horns, dance parties, and a killer named the Avenger, completely influenced by the look of the murderer from Blood and Black Lace. Let's talk about the slasher is the sex maniac. Oh my gosh. The title came from Sergio Martino's The Case of the Scorpion's Tail, which came out the year before, where Alberto de Mendoza says, in my opinion, the murderer is a sex maniac. A re-edited version of this film was released in the U.S. called Penetration, featuring hardcore footage inserts with adult film stars Harry Reams and Tina Russell. No, not... I always think Tina Russell. Is that the movie star from Gilligan's Island? No. That's Bonnie Smiley from Deep Throat Part 2. She's also in The Birds and the Bees, Doctor's Teenage Dilemma, Madame Zenobia, Sensuous Fictions, The Presidential Peepers, and The Blowhard. She was Girl with Indian Maiden in that movie, and The Hardy Girls. Oh gosh. She also did makeup for The Taking of Christina, a super rough movie, and was the assistant editor on that movie. Unfortunately, she died in 1981, very young, 33 years of age, of multiple organ failure. Her husband, Jason Russell, is the reason for her death. They say he hooked up with Jean Jennings, they broke up, and she just drank herself to death. Anyways, Granger was pretty enraged because it was advertised as an adult film with him in it. The original movie has nothing to do with the re-edited version. In the re-edited one, Granger's character is a porn collector. Granger threatened distributors with a major lawsuit, and the film was withdrawn from U.S. distribution, but not Europe. Laws don't matter in Europe. Anyways, Jolly.
Oh, Sam. You thought you could do an episode of Giallo and think the ghost of Carolyn D. Fonseca would not appear? You fool! This is an entire show where you want to make it seem as if you're some kind of Giallo elite, deigning to watch scummy movies. You tell your wife you like them because they're art. Pervert! Anyways, I want you to know that I am the dubbing voice for Amanda in Nude per l'Assassino, or Strip Nude for Your Killer, and Jessica Dublin in The Slasher is the Sex Maniac. You know, I velazioni di un maniaco sessuale al capo della squadra mobile. If Sam was here, he'd tell you that I was Corinne Clary's voice in The Devil's Honey, Laura Gemser's for Ator, Alida Valli in Inferno, Barbara Magnofi in Suspiria, Daria Nicolodini in Deep Red. What a nerd. Down in his basement, recording podcasts for 10 people. Goodbye from Giallo Heaven.